This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/friendlyatheist podcast and give us the reviews and the stars or whatever it is people do during a pandemic.
Yeah. Hey,
hello.
Speaking of the reviews, we have officially hit whatever arbitrary number I picked. So at the end, I'm going to read one of the 5-star reviews.
Woo-hoo.
Maybe I'll always read a 1-star review too, to really put you in your place.
That's
it's going to be mean about me. Hey, Hemant,
Hey.
I was watching TV yesterday and 2 days ago, and I saw this nerd. And he won some money. So I guess what I'm wondering is how much of that haven't won an episode of Jeopardy.
I won. Spoiler. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's done now. I won an episode. I went back for day 2, which was Thursday.
You did lose that one,
I did lose that one. Totally legit fair. Here's what.
You did really well, and you missed both Final Jeopardy questions.
I totally
which
did.
Is embarrassing.
You know what was weird? So I was there. They taped 5 episodes in a day. So I was sitting in the audience Monday and Tuesday, quote unquote. I was picked to play on Wednesday. I stayed through till Thursday, and then I lost, and then I watched Friday. I knew Final Jeopardy on Monday. I wasn't playing. I knew the one for today's game on Friday, and I did not know the middle 3, and it just so happened 2 of those were games I was
so
in.
Funny.
But it's such a luck of the draw thing in terms of which categories and stuff. But it was such an amazing experience. I'm so happy that I can finally talk about it with people.
No, you were really good at it.
Thanks.
I watched it with Mikey yesterday, and he was like, he's really smart. Like, yeah, I fucking know. But there's a couple of the categories came up, and I was like, oh, he's going to be awesome at this. Most notably for this podcast is books of the Bible.
Yeah, that was in Double Jeopardy on the second day. And I was like, okay, I have no idea what the background is of the 2 competitors, but I'm like, I'm feeling all right.
The woman in the middle seemed to know her shit.
She was from she's from Maine.
Yes.
But she knew country music, and I'm like, oh no, that probably means she knows Christianity too.
That was one of the ones that one and the Hugh Jackman came up. I'm like, oh, he's boned. This is it for him.
I think we talked briefly, and she said she got one right, and she found her way to the answer. She didn't know it, but we both figured it out the same way. But she beat me to the buzzer. The question had a bunch of numbers written out, and they were like, which book is this from? She's like, well, I think it's Numbers. Yeah. And she was right. She beat me to it. The other one, she said Revelations. She was wrong. I said Revelation. I got it right.
You really well actually'd her in that
But
one.
then the next 2 questions, the harder clues, I'm like, oh, I wasn't sure about it, but I got it right. That same thing happened again. I wasn't sure about it, but I got it right. You know what? I'm going to avoid the $2,000 category because I think this is about
pushing your luck?
Yes. But I will say, there were some categories. I remember the first batch of categories I saw, and I'm like, oh God, I'm going to lose.
and you did not do well in that first round.
What a nightmare it would be, because all of us who are playing are living out a dream come true.
Right.
And it's like, oh no, it's every category we don't. There was one on alcohol. What do I know about alcohol?
Literally
You've
nothing.
heard me on this podcast try to distinguish wine.
There were a couple that I saw, and I was like, he needs me in this. Like, he done fucked up.
Yeah.
What did... I was really excited that you got a Potent Potables. That's like
I got one.
Classic.
Yes.
But it's like that you got that
a classic category.
Good
yes.
category. Les Mis, that was rough. I could have helped you there.
Yes.
I'm going through the tweets.
I did enjoy the tweets that are like, how did a blogger win? I'm like, yeah,
Oh, really?
Suck it.
I did tell you to stay in your lane because you made Alex Trebek laugh, and I didn't. I'm the funny one here. I have nothing else going anymore.
It
Wine
was
questions.
The first day they asked me, what do you want to talk about? I said a few different things, and one of them was, I'll talk about I sold my soul on eBay. And that is what he talked about the first day. The second day, I had a couple other stories.
But he just talked about...
He just decided, boring.
Scrap.
Let's talk about, you're from Naperville, and so is James Holzhauer, who is amazing on the show. So that was all ad-libbed, and I was like, I don't want to...
Yeah, it was good. It was very charming.
Hopefully.
I was super stoked because the woman on the far right was talking about her podcast. I was like, yes, he's going to bring me up!
We were talking about that backstage too, because I found out she did a podcast, and so of course I have questions about that. So it was cool.
Is yours good? Do people listen to it, and why?
I assume that for everybody, the answer is always, you think people listen to a podcast? So I was just like, oh, cool. I was kind of, what equipment do you use? How often do you tape? I'm very curious about this stuff. And then coincidentally, she was picked to play in the game that I was
funny.
in. But that's going to be with everybody, you know? We're all in this mix. We're all going to play against each other probably if we do well.
Right. And
so it was cool because I did get to know some of the people I competed against, literally. And they were all sweet. And I've been following them on social media as well. And we all kind of have been through the same experience over the past week. And so it is kind of nice that I lucked out in the sense that, like, I'm a dude. No one's sending me creepy messages. They will roast the hell out of me, which is kind of funny when I was watching Twitter. It's like, who is the brown guy with the name I can't pronounce? I'm like, yeah, that's me. But, like, I imagine some of the women I was getting messages on their behalf. They're like, set me up with this. I'm like, I didn't respond, but I'm like, oh God, I'm sure they're getting worse messages, so I avoided that.
I'm just warning you, there's a small child walking behind my house. Daddy has not spotted him yet, but if you hear a bark, it's because there's a toddler.
I'm trying to think of any other stories that I couldn't share with you until now, which is, I'm trying to think. I was so in a daze after winning the first day because I didn't know the answer, but I just bet wisely, and I won. But they gave me about 10 minutes to change clothes and come right back out for the next day's game. That was the gap.
It was
10
that
minutes.
turnaround? Wow.
Actually, I lie. It happened that's the normal gap. After they taped our first episode, it was lunchtime. So I actually went to lunch with the competitors who had not competed yet, 2 of whom I was about to compete with, but I didn't know it yet.
Oh, wow.
Like, they didn't tell us until we got back. But they go so fast.
Sure.
And so before the Wednesday game that I played in, like, we all watched the Tuesday game, and it was interesting. We watched it. And then after it was done, the audience claps. They kind of dim the lights, and it's over. The production's over. And the producers just came to where all of us were sitting. Like, all right, Wednesday's game is Hemant and this other person. And it's like, oh, okay. Go back, touch up your makeup, get back out here, let's go.
Were your palms sweaty? My palms are sweaty just thinking about it.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's just like, okay. I mean, I knew this was going to happen. I just didn't know when. It's happening.
Do you think it's a technique that they used so you don't, like, scope out your opponents? They don't tell you, like...
I don't know. I don't know what the rhyme or reason
they fucking
is.
know.
And I don't know
do
if
what we tell them.
I don't know if they picked out... I don't know if they knew I was playing Wednesday, like, before I even showed up. Like, I don't know how early in advance. I do know they go through so many layers of security for which questions they ask you.
Oh, I bet.
That even the writers don't know which questions you're going to get until the game begins. And they say, this is the set we're going with.
Daddy.
So it was cool to... It was cool to watch it, like, as this is what goes on behind the scenes when all this is happening. I didn't get to talk to some people, like, once they lost, if they lost in the early shows, they kind of left.
Oh, sure.
So it's like,
cried into their coffee.
Maybe. I don't know. I can tell you this. After I lost, I felt good in the sense that, you know what? I lost it on my own merit. I just didn't know the answer. If I had known the answer, I would have won. I didn't know it. Any mistakes I made, it didn't cost me the game. It was just like, I didn't get enough, but it was fine.
Yeah.
So, like, after I lost, I'm just like, oh, well, whatever. I still won a game. Can't take that from me.
Awesome.
That was super exciting.
I will say, the moment that you won the first game, it's the most expressive I've ever seen you, and I've known you for like 7 years.
That's awesome.
God, more than that. I've known you since 2012. Oh, buddy.
It was cool. It was unexpected.
I've known you through your wedding,
the
birth
right?
of your children.
Yeah.
It's the happiest I've ever seen you.
Trying to think of anything. I will say to anyone listening who watch, so many people reached out and sent messages that were just really sweet and nice. Like, hey, I saw it. Thank you for being something nice to look forward to during the pandemic, which was sweet. But thank you so much for all those nice messages. And I will say it's kind of, as much as I would love to keep playing, it's like, okay, cool. That was a neat experience, and now I can move on and do some other stuff. I don't know what.
Yeah. Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm not even joking. If you are listening and you have any interest in that show, they let you take the test anytime now. Go do it. It's not a scam. Like, for real. Take the test if you're interested. It may take a few tries. I will. One of the women I played against, she said this in her interview too. But we were talking. She was in the shuttle on my way to the studio. Like, stopped, picked me up, picked her up as well. She was saying 2 things. One was, like, she had been auditioning for, like, since 2002.
Yeah.
And this was the first time she got called to play, which is the case for a lot of people, including a lot of longtime champions.
Sure.
And also she said they gave her a choice. They're like, you're going to tape on this day. And she had a family vacation, booked, paid, planned. And she had to make a decision. What do you want to do? Because she's like, if I say no, will I be allowed to come back on the show at a later date? They were like, oh, no.
No.
Like, we can't promise you that. And so she had to make a decision. She's like, well, this I can never do again.
Right.
So I'm coming on the show, which, I think she had a lot of family support, too, saying, no, you got to do this.
Oh, God, I would 100% be on that
Forget
side.
the trip. But I was like, yeah, a lot of people sacrifice a lot to be there, and we're lucky enough to get that opportunity. But I didn't think it would happen. It happened. I would encourage you to audition. I will kind of miss I spent 6 weeks cramming like crazy, and I haven't done that since college. Like studying for stuff.
But how do you, this is what Mikey kept asking, like, how do you even begin to study all of the knowledge?
All of the knowledge. There are some categories they're probably going to get to, which is, I knew my world capitals back and forth. They didn't ask me anything about them. They asked world languages, which I knew nothing about.
Yeah,
but I studied all the capitals. I studied the synopses of all the Shakespeare plays. I studied books and authors, for sure, as much as I could. There are like the trivia guides that are like, okay, when it comes to science, here's some stuff you should know. What is the science of light? It's optics. Am I right? I don't know about that. Like, it's that sort of thing where it's like, if you see the word light, you better know that they're talking about this.
Or like the,
I got a question about alcohol. I made a spreadsheet for alcohol, trying to keep track of all the rums. I'm not even joking. You should see the spreadsheet. It's embarrassing. But the one thing I came across was like a Gibson martini has an onion. Like, and I'm like, why the hell would it have an onion in it?
Onion.
And that question came up. Actually talking on the shuttle to the woman from Maine. She's like, oh, I'm from Maine, and LL Bean is a big deal where I'm from. And then they asked me a question about that. I'm like, glad I'm not playing her in this game, or otherwise you'd be pissed.
Yeah.
But you try to study the big things. There are guides online that can try to help you. But I will say the biggest thing that I used to study was they have an archive online of every game and every question that was asked. It's not the video of the show. It's just, here's the question, here's the answer, here's all the keep track, here's who buzzed in and got it right. But I just played those games on repeat, like several at a time, like binge playing.
Well, and the speed of the recall that you have to have is wild. Because there's definitely a lot that I would have gotten if I had like a beat
more time
to think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was really, really impressive.
Thanks. Yeah, it was cool.
It was really fun to watch. Like, I was nervous on your behalf.
Yeah.
I can't think of, I mean, this is definitely the first time I've seen anybody compete on TV. So it was a wild experience. And
I do have videos somewhere. I didn't post this because I'm just not the type to post this sort of thing online. But I asked my wife, like, hey, get a video of my parents as the final Jeopardy comes on, because I know I won. Like, and they don't know. I didn't tell anybody. And so we videotaped them, and you could it took them a minute to figure out, oh, you missed the question.
Yeah, but you did good math.
That was funny.
What was I? Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah. No, it was very, very cool. Oh, no, I know. People kept, when I said, oh my God, he won, I got all these replies like, you knew though. And I was like, no, he didn't tell me shit.
Yeah, I didn't tell anybody.
Like, I think I've known longer than you've talked about it that you were like you are in the process of getting on. But like, as soon as you recorded, you said what you said on this show. Yeah. And have said nothing else to me.
Yeah. I will say, like, if anyone asks me questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, listen, if you hear me talking about the show like a week or two from now, just slap me. You have permission. Like, it's cool. I'm good.
And hear me out. It was a really cool experience that not many people have, and you can dine out on it as long as you need to.
Give me a week, and then if I'm still talking about it voluntarily, shut me up, please.
Oh my God.
Let's talk about some other stuff going on.
Yeah. Before we jump in, I owe a thank you to @formerly_naive. I don't know their name, but if you remember a few episodes ago, I don't remember the context, but we were talking about some dumb shit that was happening in Kentucky. And then he told me that the name of this
city... The city that it was happening in was named Whitesburg, which is the funniest thing Jess has ever heard in her life. I don't know
why, it just tickled me. And this person reached out and was like, what's up? I'm from Whitesburg. And they sent me a t-shirt, and it's
the outline of Kentucky, and it says the word Whitesburg on it.
And it is like I've been wearing it for an hour and it's already cracking. Like it's great. I love everything about it. I'm going to live in this shirt. They also sent me a second one that's bright pink. And
my God.
It's a little much for me, but this one is the shirt of my dreams. And I'm so happy with it.
You look like that Office episode where they had to hold their race to their forehead.
Well, I was very self-conscious of it because it's warm here in the Chicago suburbs today. So I had my got like a sliding back door to go to like a fenced-in little patio thing that's over the garage. And my next-door neighbors, it's a townhome, so the railings are 2 feet apart. And so I'd had the door open so Dottie could like be outside. And I hear her barking, and I was like, she's seen some human people. And it's my neighbor's kids who are probably junior high age, and they're West Asian family. And I walked out, I was like, oh, hey, guys. And I was like, fuck me, I'm wearing this Whitesburg shirt. They're going to charge me for a hate crime, and they'd be right. And then I went up to talk to my husband, who's on a video conference, and I was like, guys, look at my shirt. They get my brand. Anyway, thank you so much.
That is awesome.
It just genuinely is bringing me a whole lot of joy in this very dark time in our life.
So speaking of which, I've been fascinated by all the evangelists who are just saying all the horrible things during the crisis. The funny thing is they used to say like a month ago, like this thing will be over and you could thank God for it.
So good.
My favorite must be televangelist Kenneth Copeland, who said a couple weeks ago the pandemic would be over. I'm quoting here, be over much sooner than you think. It was not.
No.
He delivered a prayer last week where he's like, COVID-19, it is done. It is finished.
When was this?
This was several days ago. And then yesterday, as we're recording this, he posted this time. This is the funniest thing. He has the prayer. He's going to yell out his prayer because that's what he does.
He yells prayers?
He yells it out. Because that's the only way God can hear.
Oh.
He's surrounded by 4 guys. His I don't know what you call them, hype men.
Hype men?
But this time,
his
church is empty, which is good. But he's yelling in front of an empty church, which the visuals of that alone is great.
Oof.
But this time, oh my God, you got to see this video. It's just him
yelling. I can't be that close to you.
Yelling at the virus. Or technically yelling at Satan, because that is the virus, saying
sure.
like, bow your knees, you fall on your face to the virus. And then my favorite, COVID-19. And he spits at COVID-19.
Ew, sir.
Yeah, I blow the wind of God on you. You are destroyed forever and you'll never be back.
Sir, we're in a pandemic. Could you not spit?
I know. And then the funniest thing is those 4 guys are all repeating everything he says. So after he spit, you hear this beat and then all the guys spit too.
Oh my God.
They're all like, okay. Here's the thing. I'm sure some people are hearing that and they're like, okay, but he's a kooky evangelist. He doesn't represent all Christians, which may be legit, even though he does have a lot of followers. By one estimate, this guy is worth $760 million. He has some followers, but it's not just him. There is a Christian preacher, Andrew Womack, who has said in the past that he raised 2 babies from the dead. He told the camera, because he hosts a talk show, he's like, the Bible says no sickness will come nigh our dwelling. God will turn off sickness, according to his interpretation of the Bible. You know, whatever receptors you have in your body that make you receptive to sickness, he'll turn it off. Not just God's going to make the pandemic or the virus disappear. He's going to, like, alter your genes to make it happen.
That's neat.
And then there's E.W. Jackson, who ran for lieutenant governor of Virginia, who is also a pastor, who said he's free of the virus, fine, because he talked to God about it, not because anything else. But he said you can be free from it too. You don't have to get it. If you guys believe in God, you don't have to. Hallelujah. And if you don't have to, then don't.
I mean, that's fail-proof logic.
There you go. So the way so many people are talking, and those are just the televangelists talking to their usual flock. I mean, I'm used to those guys saying crazy stuff. They're crazy, but they're not necessarily dangerous. because they always say crazy things to the camera. What scares me is how many pastors are literally trying to talk to their congregations.
Yeah, that's been a major problem, and we've seen it kind of all across the country. And I guess this is sort of the ultimate conclusion of this. Churches have special privileges in our nation, which makes sense to some extent when we're talking about the First Amendment, when we're talking about separation of church and state. However, they seem to have taken that and run with it to the point where they think, well, the law doesn't apply to us. And we've seen that all over the place. We see that in the Catholic Church with abuse scandals. It's
where they're like, oh, you're changing the law to allow more people to file lawsuits over child abuse cases, sex abuse cases that happened decades ago.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not against Catholics, it's against child abuse, but if you're affected, like... that says something that the Catholic Church tends to be the biggest group speaking out against those types of laws.
And this seems to be like the logical conclusion of, okay, well, we as a nation decided that's absolutely not true. Some states decided that the best way to flatten this curve is to issue stay-at-home orders for people to shelter in place, all that. And churches are like, actually, no, like we answer to God, not to the law.
Well, some of them have argued that in some states, they said essential services are allowed to be open. So grocery stores can be open even if there's a lot of people inside. You're allowed to go to the grocery store. Right. And a lot of these churches are saying, well, we're an essential service too. And it's like, no, you can live stream and people will be okay.
Right.
And their whole argument is, no, we are essential. Just because the government is liberal doesn't mean we're not essential. They're offended by that designation. Except it's like, no, those non-essential rules, like, it's not anti-religion. It applies to everybody. So you're not going to get away in court, theoretically, saying, no, this is anti-religious if you shut down the church. We talked about this last week. If a governor says, no, there's a shutdown in effect, you can't have gatherings larger than 10 people or whatever it is, as long as they do a blanket rule like that, churches are included in there, just for the same reason they can't build a building that houses a lot of people and not have a fire extinguisher or not build it to fire code or whatever. The government can set rules that apply to everybody. Mm-hmm. Churches are included in everybody. Mm-hmm. So these shutdown laws, these stay-at-home rules, they apply to churches too. So it's not anti-religious. But there was one piece that we wrote about on our site where this is written by a conservative author, and he's basically saying, don't pay attention, he says in part of his piece, this is Rod Dreher writing, don't pay attention to the kooks and the crazies who are like trying to keep their churches open. He said almost 9 out of 10 churches have closed. So we did some math.
That's not that many.
That's not that many. By one estimate, we are talking about 32,000 churches then that are still open by this conservative's logic, which he didn't say that number anywhere.
But, right. And where's he citing his sources from? You can't just say numbers.
Yeah, well, I don't know what his source was for that. But the point is, like, you've heard about a couple pastors who are like, I'm keeping my church open. And yeah, they run mega churches. This is a problem. But smaller churches that are trying to stay open are also a problem, but they're just not getting the media attention. And they need to shut down. Look, all these places, especially the mega churches, can easily deliver a sermon via live stream. You don't need to be there. It's just harder to collect money when you're doing it on YouTube or something or Facebook.
Yeah.
Which is maybe one reason they're desperately trying to hold these in-person services.
Actually just down the road from where we're recording is the Cavalry Church in Naperville.
We talked about that last week, I think, briefly.
But since we talked about it, Reverend Angel or Angel, Escamilla, I assume, he tested positive for COVID.
That was last week.
And he has since died.
Yeah. And this is a church that did not tell people he was infected, or they said don't talk to the media about it.
Mm-hmm. And it's tragic. It's people lost somebody who means a lot to them.
Yeah.
But also, how many people are going to die as a result of them not shutting down quickly enough, or not letting people know that they're at risk and therefore they should shelter in place or quarantine themselves. So they
I've driven by that church a lot. That parking lot is full a lot, and I wonder what's happening here. I don't know.
Yeah, our dog park is still open, which I'm grateful for because my dog would literally climb up the walls if it wasn't, and it's right by that church. So I'm always like eagle-eyed on that parking lot. Lately, this week, it's not been very full, which is good.
Let's talk about the pastor who's probably the most egregious when it comes to flaunting all these rules. Rodney Howard-Browne, who is a pastor in Tampa Bay, Florida, he was the one who held services last week where he's basically daring the government to come after him. He held a service last Sunday. He said, no, we're totally observing, family groups are spread 6 feet apart, except they have video. He videotaped the sermon. We saw the live stream. They're not far apart. So, whatever distancing he said he was doing, they were not doing. And in Hillsborough County, the sheriff basically put out a warrant for his arrest. They did arrest him last week after that service. He paid bail. He was out after 30 minutes, but we have a picture of the mugshot. But this guy knew it would happen. He knew what he was doing was wrong. And now he's going to try to pretend to be a Christian martyr. That's the game plan if you're him. And by the way, he's also hired a lawyer. Who's his lawyer?
Who?
Roy Moore. Child molester, allegedly. Roy Moore. Oh, I'm lying.
Oh.
That's Tony Shell's
Who's
Louisiana. The Louisiana pastor maybe has Roy Moore as a lawyer. Rodney Howard-Browne has one of the Christian groups as a lawyer. But again, their whole thing is, no, he's a pastor. He's allowed to hold church services. The government doesn't get to tell churches what to do.
Right.
Which, no, yes, they do. They can totally tell you what to do.
Right. So I think this is sort of a really interesting sort of thought exercise to go through, because this story that you just told me of a pastor knows he's not supposed to do a thing, doesn't want the government telling him what to do, so he defies the law and, dares people to hold him accountable. That's exactly what they did with the political shit 2 years ago of, we're not supposed to, if we're a nonprofit or if we're a church, we're not supposed to tell people who to vote for, but I'm going to fucking do it anyway. You guys come and get me if you think, if you think I'm so bad. And fuck you guys. It's the exact same mindset of, these rules do not apply to me, so
and it's only rules
you.
They don't want to follow.
Right.
Don't apply to me because I'm religious.
And before it was a problem based on principle, right? We give outlines, if you want to be a nonprofit, fine. Here are some guidelines to work within. And yeah, we can discuss whether or not those are fair, but they're there. And so this is, again, the next step is, fuck you, government. You can't tell me what to do. I answer to God. I don't answer to the president or the governor or the mayor. So it's the same thing. They think they live in their own separate world, and fine, but unfortunately...
In a pandemic,
you're still shopping at the same grocery stores as my, 97-year-old grandmother. That's not true. She's not grocery shopping. But, still, whatever.
In Florida, the governor, Ron DeSantis, issued a stay-at-home order, finally, after, spring break.
Oh, my God.
People on beaches.
He was like, did y'all hear? You can actually get this even if you can spread it, even if you're asymptomatic.
That was Georgia.
That was Georgia?
That was
because that was Stacey Abrams, should have been.
But in Florida, they weren't doing it. They let people stay out. He finally issued a stay-at-home order, but he said churches were exempted from that rule. So
then what's the point of anything?
The mayor of Tampa, Jane Castor, said, well, guess what? I'm the mayor and my laws apply to my region. So guess what? To this pastor, Rodney Howard-Browne, you still can't have gatherings. So what are you going to do about that, basically? And guess what DeSantis did then? Hours later, he issued a follow-up to his original order saying, no, my order overrides local ordinances, so he theoretically could meet now, which again, what's the point? If you're going to let churches meet, then what is the point of a stay-at-home order?
None.
When you say, well, some people are allowed to gather and spread the virus. Again, this isn't contained to where you meet for church. This is not a virus that only would hurt those people in the churches, because those people go grocery shopping too. They have families.
Yep.
So it affects everybody when they meet. So, in Florida, he's actively working to spread the virus.
Yeah.
The governor is.
Yeah.
And it's happening in all these Republican-led states.
Because when you're anti-science, why would they start listening to scientists now? That's the problem with all this shit. When we talk about, this governor is a creationist or this mayor is an anti-vaxxer. That's all well and good in sort of in a vacuum. Like, in theory, people can believe whatever they want to believe, but as long as they govern with the benefit of everybody in mind. But this is what happens when we put people in charge who don't give a shit about science and actively despise anybody with any kind of scientific authority. Right. They think they're snobs.
And we were seeing that in the federal government, too. Yes. What happens when you elect, like, someone who doesn't care, surrounded by people who actively oppose science? Like, all this shit's going to happen. We're somehow lucky that one scientist or two have broken through in press conferences, right, like Fauci saying normal stuff. And it's like, yeah, but that should be everybody, and it's not.
And I was just talking to a friend today, and I was like, are we supposed to wear, and I just got, there's a CDC update that says we're supposed to wear masks now. But my friend was talking to me about it, and she's like, I don't know, I guess the White House said we're going to start having to wear masks in public. And I was like, but I don't know if I can trust the White House, because I don't know if he's just pulling shit out of his ass and saying something, or if it's actually going to prevent anything. I don't know, because I don't have anybody in authority I can trust. And that's terrible. And I am a person who actively seeks out the scientifically right thing to do. And if I'm sitting here like, I don't fucking know if that's the right thing to do or not. Like, what does everyone else do? What does everybody else do? All I do is think about this bullshit all day and night. Like, people have lives. I don't. I do this podcast.
Yeah. And just want them to be sensible. Again, everything sucks. We know everything sucks, but it would help if people in charge actually listened to people who knew what they were doing. They're not, because we elected the wrong... Well, some people elected the wrong people.
White people. I'll take the hit for that one. White people did it.
Do you want good news for a second before we go back to pandemic stuff? This is kind of good news.
Kind of good news. Kind of good news. Passes for good news.
We've talked about this before, so I'll try to keep this short. But basically, the question is, who has legal authority to perform a wedding ceremony?
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about it. It's like in most states, religious people have the right to perform the wedding. That's why priests will do a wedding, or a judge. But what if you're an atheist who wants to perform your friend's wedding? A lot of atheists will say, oh, well, I'll go online, get my ordination from an online church, pay a few bucks, get ordained, and now I can do the wedding, which is true. But it means you had to go through the steps to become a priest, even for a fake online church.
Right.
But you had to become a priest to do it. Why? Because in your state, maybe, the law requires you to be a religious leader in order to do it. What if you're just an atheist who says, hey, look, these are my two friends getting married. They want me to do the wedding. I want to do it. And better yet, if you say there has to be some level of training for everybody who does it, and religious leaders get that training by default, what about trained humanist celebrants who have gone through a training process by an organization that actually laid out, this is stuff you need to know? Wouldn't that be more qualified than someone who spent 5 minutes and $5 online? You would think. But in some states, Michigan was one of them, they were not on the list. If you were a registered, trained, secular celebrant, you could not perform a wedding. You were not on the list. You were not counted unless you were ordained with a religious group. Right. So there was a lawsuit over this years ago. I think it started a couple of years ago. 2018 is when this started, basically to plaintiffs with the Center for Inquiry. Two plaintiffs that they were working with said, we have friends that want us to perform their weddings. We're not allowed to do it in Michigan. We should be allowed to do it in Michigan. We have training. We know what we're doing. They want us. This is timely. Let us do it. And that lawsuit went on. Now, here's the thing. The state basically said, I'm going to confuse some of the details here, but basically, here's what happened this week. I'll cut to what's happening now. The state of Michigan, which is now democratically controlled, basically said, we're not going to fight you on this. So that's good. They basically said, you know what? We're not going to fight you in court. You can have this win. But the way they did it is to say the current law includes you in the way it's worded. You're already included. There's nothing to fight about. So, yay, they dropped the case.
And that just applies to celebrants, though,
That
right?
applies to secular celebrants. It's not like it's changed the law or anything. They're just saying, look, we know you thought that based on what it said, you're not included, but you really are, so don't worry about it. Go, you can perform the wedding, we'll count it. Go away, let's move on to other stuff.
Right.
So good news, they won. The downside is there is no reason a future conservative administration can't go back and say, yeah, no, you interpreted it wrongly, and we're going to hold to what it actually says. So, like, you wanted the courts to say the current law is illegal.
Right.
Instead, the state of Michigan said, we're not going to fight you. You can have it. So it's a victory, but it's not a permanent victory, and that's the downside.
Yeah.
But I thought there's a little bit of good news in there. Like, first of all, there's no reason they should limit it to religious groups.
I don't feel any better after
No?
that story.
I'll give you another happy one later.
Okay. Actually, I have a good news
Please,
story.
go for it.
So we talked last week, a few states have been, so right now during the pandemic, they're shutting down non-essential surgeries for the most part to reserve equipment, PPE, all that stuff, time for people who are actively sick. In some states, and Texas is one of them, they considered abortion to be an elective surgery. In fact, whoever made this decision was like, you can do it when fucking ever, man. Like, this isn't time pressing. Don't worry about it. And the irony is that Texas is like, if they have their druthers, like, well, you have to have an abortion within 35 seconds of conception. So, like, you better hurry up. So they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. However, a federal judge on Monday temporarily blocked Texas's ban on abortions, and they said that officials said it was necessary See, I already said this. So the ruling came less than a week after Texas abortion providers announced a lawsuit against top state officials challenging Attorney General Ken Paxton's assertion that Governor Greg Abbott's executive order banning all procedures deemed to be not medically necessary should be interpreted to include abortions. So the court granted the abortion providers' motion to temporarily block the state from enforcing the order, and that will expire on April 13th.
So what is that in English?
So we'll hear from U.S. District Judge Lee Yeakel, I think. Regarding a woman's right to a pre-fetal viability abortion, the Supreme Court has spoken clearly. There can be no outright ban on such a procedure. All patients accessing abortion, this is from Tara Paulmeyer, all patients accessing abortion deserve their care without delay. Access to reproductive health care is especially important during a public health crisis, and this really means Texans have access to much-needed care. Instead of trying to distract with ideology, state lawmakers like Governor Greg Abbott and indicted Attorney
So basically,
General?
they're saying what? All the Republicans in Texas are trying to shut down abortion clinics under the guise of
like,
pandemic.
They're saying, like abortions, A, aren't essential health care, B, can be done when the fuck ever, which is clearly against their own morals regarding abortions.
Wait, what do you want you to push back your abortion until the 8th month?
Right,
is that
exactly.
what you want? So one judge said
the judge
no.
was like, actually, no, because, and this is why Roe v. Wade is so important, because they said the Supreme Court has decided that you cannot ban abortion, and this is an abortion ban. So it's good news for Texans, at least for now, for the next week and a half, I guess.
It's bizarre to me that a medical procedure, they're like, this is non-essential, it's optional. It's not, but I think in Texas they kept gun stores open as essential.
Sure.
Because you gotta shoot the virus.
Yeah, I saw one really cool post that was like, hey, during this pandemic, remember, liberals don't have guns in their house. So if you need to,
hilarious.
If you need to raid somebody. So
Jesus.
Cool. You are enacting our big
It's not
spirit.
just
That's
Texas
neat and
either.
fun.
In other conservative states.
No, that was a straight up and down Illinois post that I saw.
They'll use anything they can to shut down abortion clinics.
Oh my god, absolutely. And they're very transparent in what they're trying to do. This was just an excuse to put pressure on abortion, and we'll see later.
And again, surgery, if you made sure contraception was freely available and you made sure early abortions were accessible and everyone had that option, then it wouldn't even be a surgery.
Yeah.
It's just have a doctor on call. It's not that complicated at first.
And it's very interesting because we're seeing a lot of shaping the story from the right of, well, if Trump wasn't distracted by XYZ, generally it was impeachment, if he wasn't distracted by impeachment, he would have known about this COVID thing beforehand, which is
he was golfing. He has time.
Wild assertion because we have the receipts. We know what's up. But then, so they're like, oh, we don't have time to hold people accountable for their actions.
What sort of president is so dumb that they're like, oh, the impeachment's going on? He's not testifying. Trump doesn't have to do anything. He's watching Fox News
all fucking day. Put it
but
on
he can't do anything else. Yeah.
And chat with a CDC official.
Right.
But in the same breath, I've got another story here that where is it? Oh, yeah, Trump is still pushing through federal judges in spite of COVID.
Right. Mitch McConnell has said...
he's such a nightmare
He said,
human.
His goal is to make sure there are no vacancies before the election, and there are still dozens and dozens of vacancies that he's trying to fill. And we've talked about this before. He's filling those vacancies with the youngest, dumbest conservatives he can find.
Oh, my God,
so that they can be bad for the future. Because even when Trump is gone, and if Democrats ever have a blue wave again, he still has infested the entire judiciary, so it won't matter. And this guy that they're really trying to push through...
Justin Walker.
Yeah.
He's 37 years old.
He's been a judge for 6 months. They already pushed him through in a Kentucky district court. So he had that job for 5-6 months, and now they're like, let's give you a promotion because you're really young and dumb.
And the American Bar Association said it rates nominees, and it concluded last year that Walker was not qualified due to lack of experience. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, quote, "Of course we'll go back to judges. Hugh, you and I have talked about this. My motto
Hugh Hewitt, the radio host, conservative.
You and I have talked about this before. My motto for the rest of the year is leave no vacancy behind. Meanwhile...
Which they can, because Republicans have a Senate majority.
Yeah.
But this also depends on them getting back in session and having hearings that they got to do.
And meanwhile,
formalities.
He's not committing to passing another coronavirus relief bill, which is, I guarantee you,
he doesn't care if people die. He just wants his judges. And evangelicals who vote for these sort of people also don't care if people die. They're pro-life, but they don't care if you die. They just want conservative judges who will make sure fetuses survive the apocalypse. Right. They don't care if you're living and you die.
Yeah, Brian Fallon of Demand Justice, he called McConnell's plan to keep on working on nominations outright ghoulish. Which is
the nicest thing I've ever heard anyone say about Mitch McConnell.
He's a fucking monster. It's so wild how people can hold this cognitive dissonance in their head of when... of course President Trump couldn't have been prepared for this COVID thing, even though he has known since January, because he was getting impeached, and that took all of his time. And now that this should be taking up all of everybody's time, it's taking up all of our time, and we're idiot podcasters. What the fuck is Congress doing?
Yes.
So, yeah, this should be taking up all their time, and maybe fucking take a seat, Mitch McConnell, and make sure people can eat tomorrow, because April 1st just came and went, and I know a lot of people couldn't pay their rent, couldn't pay their mortgage, couldn't make it to the grocery store. I'm whipping myself into a frenzy. So many people I know have lost jobs, and it takes 3 weeks, 4 weeks for unemployment to kick in. It's not like a safety net that happens right away. People are fucked. And he's like, or this 19-year-old bimbo dude can be on, he needs a nice robe and to go bang a gavel and be like, I love fetuses and I hate humans.
That is a good impression of him.
Thank you. I was working on it this week.
That's good. I wanted to ask you about this. This one bugged me for a lot of reasons, but okay, Franklin Graham, the evangelist, he says his usual horrible stuff. He runs a charity called Samaritan's Purse, which does good stuff, but also it's Franklin Graham, so you can never be too certain. One of the things they did this week is, again, huge charity. Huge. They have, if not $1 billion at their disposal, it's not far from it. Okay. $664 million. There you go. They set up a 68-bed respiratory unit in Central Park. It's one of the makeshift hospitals of sorts that they're trying to set up in New York City, where there are more cases than anywhere else in the country. So good. Samaritan's Purse set up that station. They are trying to get people to volunteer and help run it who are qualified and know what they're doing. And that's all well and good. That's what you hope a charity does. That's what I'm sure a lot of people hope a Christian charity, quote unquote, does. Like, right? You are helping people in the midst of a crisis. You have the money to do it. You have the manpower to pull it off. Good, you would think. Okay, here's the but to all of that. If you want to volunteer to work at this clinic, they make you sign their statement of faith. Here's what's on their statement of faith. You have to believe, and I'm quoting here, that marriage is exclusively the union of one genetic male and one genetic female.
Yes. Now they care about genetics?
Yeah.
Now they care about science.
You're not just anti-gay, you're anti-trans as well. Trans people don't exist in their worldview.
No.
You have to believe, and I'm quoting again, that God will, quote, banish the unrighteous to everlasting punishment in hell. So Jews got to be tortured for eternity. You also have to believe human life is sacred from conception to its natural end. So anti-abortion all the way through. So you have to believe these things to volunteer with the organization because they're a Christian group and they get to set their rules. So here's the question. Should New York City be partnering with a group like this? And this is where it gets dicey because New York City needs all the help it can get right now. And this is a Christian group that has the funding to pull off a thing like this that they actually need. Now, Samaritan's Purse has said, look, whatever our rules are for our volunteers, we get to set the rules for that. We are not going to mistreat we're not going to deny care to people who are gay or trans or whatever. How do we know? We're not going to treat anybody differently. We will provide the best care possible. But so their argument is, who cares what our rules are? Our rules are our rules.
I bet
we are going to help anyone.
Care.
So I think the pushback has come from some people who are like, if, God forbid, I have to go to that clinic, if I am gay or I am trans or what have you, or I'm Jewish or I'm atheist, do I have to worry that I'm getting the best care from people who think I am doomed to eternal damnation? If I'm a brown person who goes there, or you see my hijab, or you see any symbol of what I believe or who I am, that is not fitting, comporting with whatever it is they believe in, should I be worried? And they're like, if I have to ask that question, maybe there's a problem. Whereas New York City is like, look, if we thought they were discriminating against patients, of course we wouldn't work with them.
But they're just discriminating against volunteers.
So that's
fine.
The question is, what should the reaction be? My personal thought is, look, I don't know exactly what my answer is to this because they need help. Here's a group offering help. If you're New York City and you say, no, we don't want your help because you're bigoted, which is true, but also you're denying possible care to people who need it. So I don't know what the right answer is necessarily.
Here's what I think, and I will say I'm fired up from that thing that we were talking about before that I blacked out. I don't remember what I was talking about. Why does the government, why does New York have to bend its rules to accommodate these stringent bullshit fundamentalists?
Well, the question is, what are the rules? The rules are whatever the rules are, you can't discriminate against the patients. And Graham's group says we are not. It's like Ark Encounter.
In what universe is me I can't volunteer there unless I denounce the fact that trans people exist and say,
if you want to work with their group, correct. You can volunteer in other ways with New York City, but you can't volunteer with their group. So
the fucking state should have nothing to do with these people. And the blood is not on New York State's hand. The blood is on Franklin Graham's fucking hands. If people don't get treatment, because we should not bring people in on this who are willing to discriminate against people freely and gleefully. It's horrible. These people are fucking monsters. If they are saying still, today, in April 2020, when people are fucking dying by the thousands, and they still insist on keeping up their standards of bigotry, then fuck them.
Now,
the blood is on their hands.
So, okay. there was one state senator in New York, Brad Hoylman, who basically has been the most vocal against partnering with them. But here's what he said. He's putting them on notice, whatever that means. But he basically said, today I am calling on Franklin Graham to publicly assure LGBTQ New Yorkers that they will receive the same treatment as anyone else, ... We, as the government, must monitor conditions closely at the facility and ensure every single LGBTQ patient is treated fairly. Which, again, Graham's group has said, we comply with that. We are going to treat everyone fairly. This is Hoylman again. Sadly, beggars can't be choosers. New York needs every ventilator we can get, but homophobic Pastor Franklin Graham and his field hospital operation, ... must make sure patients are treated with dignity and respect.
Because New York has the resources to go in and do micromanagement on fucking Franklin Graham to make sure they're not being homophobic.
Let me add this to the equation. In the past, when they have done things that said, no, like, here's an example. They do this thing, Operation Christmas Child. I think that's what it's called, where they say, we are going to...
That's not a good title.
Whatever.
Why can't they even do titles well?
Where they say, we are making, like, shoeboxes filled with stuff poor kids may need over the holidays, clothes or shoes or whatever it is. And we're going to get the donations and we're going to send them to groups that need it. And sometimes they partner with public schools to make these boxes. And there's a couple problems with that. One is, why is a public school partnering with a Christian group? And there's always pushback. It's like, what do you have against them partnering with a group that's doing something good? Well, in some of these cases, they include material in the boxes that says we're a Christian organization, and they do proselytize that way. So this is the concern. If there's a Muslim patient with COVID-19 and they go into one of these clinics, you're right. Who's monitoring any of this? What happens if one of those volunteers is like, let me try to bring you closer to Jesus while I save your life? There's no way to really monitor it or stop it or whatever. And the fact that it's it's not like Franklin put out a statement saying there will be no proselytizing. No. They just said, no, we're going to help everybody. But their example of help is bringing people to Christ. They do think that's a way to help people.
Here's the thing. Yeah. If Franklin Graham is squatting on fucking ventilators that are needed by hospitals and...
I don't know that he's doing that.
But hypothetically, but you're saying if they have ventilators, people need them. We need every ventilator we can get.
That's what the Hoylman said.
Okay, so that's what he said. So in this scenario that he's laying out, then, right, Graham has access to these ventilators in whatever way, shape, or form. He's offering health care. However, every ventilator, do you have...
I don't have anything in front of me that contradicts that.
Okay, and that's an assumption I'm making. But my point is, every ventilator, every bed, every blood donation that goes to Franklin Graham is being taken away from atheists, Muslims, queer people, trans people, because they are almost certainly not going to feel safe going to an evangelical fucking hospital that is by definition, full of homophobes.
We've talked about this when you don't always have a choice about where you go to a hospital, but if you end up going to a Catholic hospital, it's not the proselytizing isn't the problem, but your options for surgeries are limited. So if you're a woman with an ectopic pregnancy who is going to die,
we're still living this
and
way.
you emergency have to go to a Catholic hospital, they will not get rid of the fetus because that's an abortion. What are you going to do? And that's the problem. Here, again, it's like let's suppose
who would be straight up fucking dead if she ended up at a Catholic hospital because she had an ectopic pregnancy and would have died.
If Franklin Graham's group signed some statement, they haven't done this, but if they signed some statement saying, look, we will treat everyone equally, you can monitor the care we provide. Let's suppose, because this is his best case scenario that he's trying to push on everybody, let's say it is quality care for everyone who comes their way. Then, if you're in New York City, do you partner with this organization, or do you say, oh, you can offer this much money and help and resources? Yes, come on board. Like, we need your help. We need all the help we can get right now. I don't think, legally speaking, it's not a problem. I don't think that's a problem. My concern is when it's associated with Franklin Graham, I don't trust him to do the right thing. No one should, because he's been publicly a bigot for so long. But again, I don't know if I would do anything differently if I'm New York City in this case, because based on everything I've heard from them, they need everything. They don't have anything enough of what they need. So it's like, a group with resources wants to help. As long as they're going to provide care to everyone we put in their path, and they're not doing any shenanigans here and there, then fine, come help.
What we're looking at is the end result of centuries of religious privilege going unchecked. And now we're at the point that they have so much power that they're like, oh, yeah, we have all this money. We can help people as long as they're Jesus-y enough.
Right.
Like, and I understand that they're not laying that down on patients. I do. I hear that. I just do. There is nothing in that church's history that leads me to believe that they will, like, be just and fair and open-armed to anybody who comes in. Like, do you think, like, if a trans woman comes in, they're going to be, like, super chill with her identity and give her the care that she requires? Or do you think they're going to be dickbags like they always are?
Yeah, this is where I don't trust them enough to...
Yeah,
the fact that I'm hesitating is like, I don't trust them to always do the right thing, even though they say they totally will. And that's the issue.
They all say that.
Yeah, they do. I mean, even the ones who are like, conversion therapy is cool, they're like, we're doing that because we love gay people.
Because they're fucking walking nightmares. And they are killing people. Now, literally, they've always been killing people by not affirming people's gender, by not affirming people's sexuality. Groups like this have always been killing people. And now, literally, people are going to die of an illness because they don't have access to care that isn't shrouded in bigotry. And no, if you're sick, if you're dying, you don't deserve to compromise your own life, your own lifestyle, your own person by going to people who don't believe in who you are. It's bullshit. And it has to stop. Fuck.
Let's talk about more bigotry. I have one more that related story.
I'm sweating really hard.
I see it.
Okay, that's not a point. That's true, though.
Your Whitesburg shirt is...
I'm sweating through my Whitesburg shirt.
This is one more separate thing, not
it's
with...
fruit of the loom cotton.
You know what? I would add to the Graham story. Remember when Ken Ham was trying to build Ark Encounter in Kentucky?
Yeah.
One of the pitches they made to the city that they built it in is, look, give us a bunch of tax breaks and cheap land and whatever, because we want to build this tourist attraction in your city. And what are we going to do for you? We're going to bring all these jobs to your community. And what they didn't say at the time, years before it opened, what they didn't say then, and what turned out to be the case, is that for all the tax breaks they got from the city, for all the incentives they got from the state of Kentucky, they also limit their employment. And this is to everybody, not just like the curators or whatever, but to the janitors, to the food staff. You have to abide by their statement of faith, which is pretty much what Graham has as well. You have to deny the existence of trans people. You have to be anti-gay if you want to work anywhere for them. And again, if you're a progressive Christian, you can't work for them. If you're a Jew, you can't work for them. And this is why there was a lawsuit over why are they getting a tax break from the state of Kentucky for the next decade?
Yeah, it's almost...
if they're only giving jobs to people who are only their own kind.
It's almost as...
And remember, the court said... or the state of Kentucky, run by a Republican at the time, said, it's fine, we're going to give them the tax break anyway.
It's almost as if white evangelical Christians have made up their own fucking rules for years and years and years, and the government has been complicit at every level, and they've never been trustworthy. They've never... I shouldn't say never, I don't know that that's true, but we have example after example of these people saying, well, we deserve government funds. We deserve tax breaks because we're so good for the community. No. You're good for your people.
Right.
You're not good for the community at large. And they never are. They don't care about anybody. They care about people in so much of they could become a member of their flock or their congregation or whatever.
They want to add tally marks.
And if they aren't, if I'm there and they're not going to get me into their church, I am literally useless to them, and they want they don't want to. If I live in wherever Kentucky that is,
Whitesburg.
No, it's not Whitesburg. I know that's not where the Ark Encounter is. They don't give a fuck about me. I'm useless to them. They don't care if I'm doing well. It's just this is what we're living in right now, and obviously I haven't been talking to people for the last 3 weeks, which is why I have a lot of emotions pent up. But we're just looking right now at just the result of this anti-science rhetoric that the right and the evangelical right has pushed for decades. It's come home to roost, and guess what? 200,000 people might die in this country. They have been laid to sacrifice so that we could, limit abortions and make sure gay people could get married? Congratulations. Good job, right? You really did a nice job. You got what you wanted. People are going to die. Cool. Great. That's great news. This is great. I'm going to finish this wine during...
You do that. All right, I got one last story for you. This is also bigotry. Here's a case of where you don't get to laugh at that.
That came out my nose.
One of the ways you could fight back against COVID-19 is if you have someone who had the virus and is no longer with the virus, you could get their blood and you could figure out use that to build an immunity of sorts.
The antibodies.
I'm sure any scientist listening is like, that's not at all what's going on. But there's the idea.
He was on Jeopardy. I think he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, you know that's my... Oh, you're fighting with me about everything? Guess what?
Yesterday when there was a math question and you buzzed in and I literally just yelled, Hemant!
There was
Mikey couldn't stop laughing.
The category was this and that, and we're like, I don't know what that means.
Even after all the questions, I didn't know what it meant.
We all avoided it, and the last question of the half was, all right, someone else said, I'll go there for 1,000, and it was a fucking math question, and I knew it in a second,
and
I'm like,
solve for X.
I don't even know if we all buzzed in for that one. I buzzed in like hell. I got it right, but I'm like, I should have gone to that category.
Literally all I did was yelled your name, because I was like, finally, math teachers!
It was just a straight up math question. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I hadn't either.
Or anyway, bigotry. That's what I was talking about.
Sure.
So if you have the immune response of someone who has survived the virus, that would be a good starting point. But you need blood to test it on. And right now, blood is at a shortage. People need blood donations.
Oh, God.
And one of the
Can we talk
problems...
about how gay people still can't donate blood?
Yeah, gay people can't donate blood. Or the word is not gay, though. The way, if you're donating blood, as anyone who has done it knows, because they ask you this in the questionnaire, the question says, one of the many questions is, if you're a man, have you had sex with another man within the last 12 months? And maybe that doesn't make you gay, whatever label you want to use. But if you have had sex in the past 12 months with another man, you cannot donate blood or they can't use it. And that's straight up from like the 80s.
Can I
AIDS.
add
Please.
to that? And I don't know if they asked this question to men. It makes sense that they didn't. But as a woman, they also ask, have you had sex with a man who has had sex with a man in the last 6 months? So it's not just, I mean, obviously it's targeted at gay men, but it also extends to, like, if you have a boyfriend who's bi, like, that's that for you for
And the
6
thing
months.
is, they can test the blood. Like, there's no reason... You can... It's not like they just take your blood and use it. They test it. They make sure it's okay.
Like
and so the weird thing is, like, why do you have these restrictions in place when you could just test the blood? If you're worried about HIV, which is when these rules kind of came into effect, like, just test it. If it's good, why can't you use it?
Right.
And the thing that happened this week, the Food and Drug Administration announced this week, okay, you know what? There's a shortage of blood. We need blood. So we're going to loosen those restrictions on gay donors. And you're thinking, yay, finally, gay people can donate. Nope. They said instead of have you had sex with another man in the past 12 months, we'll put it down to 3 months. So if you...
What the fuck?
This was the good news, quote unquote. Now you have to abstain from having sex with men for only 3 months, if you're a man, instead of 12, if you want to donate, which is still stupid.
That's terrible.
And NBC News had a story where they interviewed someone who was basically taking an HIV drug, which was also, Truvada prevented him from donating blood because of that. And all the doctors are like, because the medical community who creates these rules, they see his blood as unclean, not because he's doing anything high risk, but because of the sex of his spouse. And again, if you ask people who know about this stuff, who work with this stuff, they're like, there's no reason to have this ban in place.
Of course not.
There's no reason you need to ask them this question. Just test the blood like we would with anybody else and use it if it's good.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's just an example of how bigotry still plays a role in everything.
It's so stupid. Also, I have a question. If anybody is associated with the Red Cross or whatever, I keep going to the Red Cross's website, and they're like, and I've gotten like calls, we need blood. And I go, and there's one blood drive in 2 weeks and another in 4 weeks. Like, isn't there a place I can just go and donate, like, on a weekday? And I don't understand. I just want to give people my blood. It's very good blood. It's only 3/4 wine at this point.
We have time for one more story. Which one do you want?
Oh, Christ. Do I have one?
Malaysia. Let's talk about Malaysia, because that was...
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, this is a good... Okay, so Malaysia is actually has one of the highest rates of infection of COVID in Southeast Asia, I believe. So, everybody's doing their shelter-in-place thing, and the government's really trying to help families, like, hang out and be chill and all that stuff. Also, I should look up more information, but if you're trapped with, like, an abusive partner, there's resources for you, and I want to try to find that, and I'll tweet that out. So the Malaysia's Ministry for Women, Family, and Community Development issued a series of online posters on Facebook and Instagram with the... I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but it's laughable. With the hashtag Women Prevent COVID-19.
Here's what women can do
Oh, good.
to
My
prevent.
husband's here. He can hear these really good tips from Malaysia. Mikey, listen to this. No, listen to this, baby. It advises the nation's women to help the country's partial lockdown by not nagging their husbands. The ministry also advised women to refrain from being sarcastic. How's that been going, sweetie?
Finally. Someone had
They advised gentle humor.
And it urged women working from home to dress up and wear makeup. What's up, baby?
Whitesville!
Woo!
It's Whitesburg, you're racist.
I had to check.
They also told women you need to count to 20 before you respond to your husbands in anger. They did not tell husbands to do that.
It's another incredible thing that's happening. Okay, so in Malaysia, they're telling people only the head of household should go grocery shopping, do whatever essential business. It didn't specify male or female, but most families took it upon themselves to be like, well, the men are like, I'm the head of the household. This is how I talk. I'm Gaston, I guess. And so they're like, well, I'll go grocery shopping. And they're fucking lost. And they're like giving each other tips of like, make sure you charge up your phone before you go because you really need it. And they're just like wandering around aisles, confused, staring at lists because I don't send Mikey out to grocery shop because I do most of the shopping and he would be very, very lost. That's not a concern of mine because I very much like cooking. I'm very good at it, and he only fries things. But like, imagine sending him out and be like, "Okay, Mikey, I'm gonna make a pasta sauce from scratch. Do you know what a shallot is?" Spoiler alert: he does not. One time I had him pick an avocado. It was a nightmare. It was a whole fucking thing.
The posters also say women should learn how to do girlish giggling. And yep. Learn how to laugh, woman. And then
that wasn't a bit. That was
and then use a Doraemon-like voice, which is the voice of a kid's cartoon. I could not do the voice for you if I tried. But basically, after there was some pushback, imagine how many people had to see the development of these posters and no one said a thing.
There's a reason that you need women.
Yeah.
You need women in business.
And so finally, the ministry finally responded. And they're like, we would like to apologize if several tips were inappropriate or if they touched on the sensitivities of certain groups.
Oh, certain groups like human women?
Yes. We'll be more careful in the future. So there's your apology. Sorry you were offended.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That was a lot for me to deal with.
I would ask you what you're doing this next week, but the answer is
literally
no one's
nothing.
doing anything.
Tonight, actually, the Twitter poll might have ended. I've been, if you don't follow me on Twitter, my husband and I have been doing a, I guess I would call it a mini-series, about, it's on our Patreon feed, so you can get it. We've been doing
if you're a Patreon donor, then you have access to that feed with these.
Yeah, so I think we've done 7 or 8 so far, and we're watching movies about people being trapped together, and then just having a conversation about it. It's genuinely been a lot of fun. Mikey and I have never really recorded together, but he is a film guy. He knows a lot about film, so it is an extremely... It's nice for us because it gives us a little structure and forces us to sit down and talk to each other instead of watch TV like the vagabonds we are. But so if you are looking for something to watch, I think we're going to throw up one of the episodes on the main feed just so you guys can get a taste and see what we're doing. Sometimes we're like something we've done The Shining, and we've done we did Alien, which Mikey's a huge fan of. We also did The Village, which Mikey fucking hates and was just angry the whole time. But all that's to say is, every couple days I'm posting a little Twitter poll to decide what movie we should watch. So we do it in like themes. So tonight it's Hitchcock. So we have Lifeboat, Rear Window, Rope, and The Birds. Rear Window is currently winning, which is good. I don't like the movie The Birds. So if you want to participate in that, that's great. We'll maybe throw one of those episodes up for you guys to listen to. Really quick, did you hear the Elon Musk thing?
What?
So Elon
what do you
Musk
do now?
is a straight up and down villain now. So did you see the order that he's like, oh, we sent a bunch of ventilators to whomever.
Okay.
And, well, first of all, he said, like, somebody tweeted like, oh, Elon Musk, where are these fucking things? And he was like, oh, I just got a message that they're like held up at Logan Airport or Heathrow Airport or whatever in London.
Yeah.
And Heathrow responded like, nah, dude, we don't got them. And then he sent them like the wrong kind of ventilator masks. So they're fucking useless. So I guess what I'm saying is eat the rich. When I got my...
Moral of the story.
When I got my check, turns out, guess how much it costs to build a guillotine?
How much?
$1,200. So that's what I'll be doing. Anyway, fuck billionaires. Y'all are nightmare people. I've also spent a lot of my day... Oh, this is what I'll be doing this weekend. I'm on all of my dumb, like, Aurora, Naperville Facebook groups.
Yes.
And there's, like, really cool people who are like, oh, my tenants didn't pay rent. As soon as this thing's over, I'm going to evict them right away. And I just call them out for being nightmare people.
Nice.
So that's been fun. Really fulfilling my life. I also found out where you could watch Great Canadian Bake Off, which I did watch in the last 24 hours and nailed it. Also very good. But watching a lot of TV, Hemant, is what I've been doing.
I have no idea what we're talking about anymore.
Nothing. What else? I'm in the middle of an episode of The Dollop, which is one of my favorite podcasts, and they're doing a really cool story about, they're calling it the textbook riot, the textbook... West Virginia textbook something war. And it's essentially about in the 70s when people in West Virginia were like, what? They're teaching about multiculturalism and atheism? Fuck this. And they like went on strike and shut down schools. It's a very good episode. It's like all about book burning and shit like that. I guess we're done, huh?
We're good. We'll be around next week.
Yeah.
We got nothing else going on. It's all
Literally
good.
nothing. You can follow me on Twitter at Blueberry, BLUEBURIE.
I'm at Hemant Meta.
Hey, I was just telling Hemant I got this writing gig and it's been delayed because of COVID. So if you want to support us, you can either go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast, or you can go to my Etsy shop at Bitches Get Stitched Done. If you want to order something, I do custom work, things like that. That would be very helpful for me this month.
You're supposed to read a review.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. So we hit that level. So I'm going to go into my app. Let's see. We have 758 ratings. I'm going to go ahead and read the first.
And if you convert that to internet money, it's nothing.
$0.00, but it makes me feel good in my heart.
There you go.
So this review is titled Heart, and it is by 12509. So a robot.
Okay.
Back in high school, I discovered Hemant's videos on the Atheist Voice channel, and it's what led me on my journey to becoming an atheist. I recently started listening to the podcasts, and I knew I would enjoy this one since I'm a fan of Hemant's content. Jessica helps make the podcast even better. They're both fantastic, and I love listening each week.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, some really nice ones. Somebody talked about how they had suicidal thoughts, and we helped them through them, which is very, very sweet. Anyway, so...
That's sweet.
Thank you for that. So leave us a 5-star review. I will read it on the show, maybe. Anything else?
No.
Did you say
I just
your
want to
Twitter
say
handle?
thank you. Yeah, I'll just say once again to anyone who sent me nice messages about Jeopardy stuff, thank you. Again, I really appreciate it. Cool opportunity. Obviously, if you are considering doing it, reach out to me. I'll give you whatever advice I can, but go take the test. It's at their website. Go take it. It's fun.
Can I tell you that I suspected you won when you said you wanted to have a Jeopardy watch party? And I was like, if he lost, he would not invite humans over to his house. He barely wants to do that anyway, let alone to see him go down in flames.
Of the contestants who competed that week, someone did have a Jeopardy watch party, and I'm like, I know they lost, but they did it really well. And they were answering questions for their family members and live streaming it. I'm like, they did it really well.
Sure.
The way they did it was well done. And they answered so many things that were going on backstage that no one ever talks about, and it was really neat.
Oh, that's
Even though
nice.
I was there, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was cool. Yeah.
So we might be toying with doing remote podcasting soon. So if you hear a shift in quality, that's why we're doing our best to stay safe. But keep putting out the show.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.